Sega and games consoles have a rather spotty history, and that's putting it lightly. After warming up with their early 8-bit consoles such as the Master System, Sega then knocked it out of the park with the Mega Drive, giving even Nintendo a run for their money. Then it went a little bit pear-shaped. Sega lost focus in the race to bring out a CD-based console, and then made a disastrous error with a mushroom-like add-on that we're not going to talk about. They then started fresh and made the Saturn, a valiant effort which resulted in some truly great games, but the hardware and marketing was simply outclassed by the Sony PlayStation. Sega then threw their hat into the ring one last time with the Dreamcast, which saw a late 1998 release in Japan. The Americans got the iconic launch date of the 9th of the 9th month, 1999, the following year. Europe had to wait just a little bit longer until the far less memorable date of September 23rd. All the marketing hype made a big deal of the fact that on September 23rd, everything would change. Remember that the previous console to this was the Nintendo 64. The Dreamcast was the first 128-bit machine to hit the market. Except, for whatever reason, it didn't launch on September 23rd. It was delayed until October 14th, 1999. Complete with a slight brand alteration, you won't find any labels referring to the Sega Dreamcast in Europe, just Dreamcast, presumably to distance it from the Sega Saturn. Throw in a corny marketing slogan and Robert's your mother's brother.
The future of gaming is between people, and there are up to 6 billion players out there.
Up to 6 billion players! Yeah, because all the people in the third world countries can't wait to get in on the fun, right? At the time, Sega did so much right with the Dreamcast, and for a while it looked like Sega were back with a colossal bang. Sadly, the failed consoles of their past meant that there was no stash of money to keep Sega afloat, and they ran into financial trouble by 2001. For comparison's sake, Nintendo's runaway console success meant they could sweep any financial disasters like the Virtual Boy under the carpet as if they never happened. PlayStation 2's release was the final nail in the Dreamcast coffin, but damn, it was certainly a blast while it lasted. 15 years have passed now since the Dreamcast launch, and because it's one of my all-time favourite consoles, let's take a look back at Sega's little machine that could. Sure, the machine had a lot of incentives to buy it at launch, like being the first console with internet access, via a 56k modem you had to hook up to your phone line no less, it being the most powerful console available at the time, and it being a great way to experience arcade-perfect ports at home. But now that the servers have all shut down, the hardware's outdated and most of its games can be played on other systems, there's no reason to own a Dreamcast 15 years later, right? Well, I can give you 5 reasons.
Cost!
Frankly, it's dirt cheap. You can pick up a working Dreamcast bundled with multiple games and accessories for less than the price of a new current-gen game, potentially far less for the system alone. Hell, a lot of Dreamcast eBay auctions start at 99p, and provided you get a compatible cable included, you won't have any issues running your Dreamcast on a modern television. Which brings me on to
Ease of use!
It's so simply designed. You've got power and eject buttons on top, 4 controller ports on the front, so no need for a multi-tap, and just your basic power and video cable coming out the back. Once it's on, the startup menu is dead simple, and the most you'll be prompted for is the time and date. No updates, installations or other delays, just pop your game in and off you go. And did I mention the system is effectively region-free? A simple boot disk is all you need to play import games, so no regional restrictions here. And if any of your games get scratched up and unusable, you can burn a backup to a CDR and play that instead. The PAL system will run CDRs even without a boot disk. Not that I'm suggesting that this method can be used to play any game you don't own already, since despite being a legal grey area, it would be morally and ethically wrong. So don't do it. Anyway, I should touch on the controller. Yes, it is a bit of a downgrade going back to one analog stick, and the comfort level of the controller, particularly where the D-pad is concerned, does leave a little bit to be desired for prolonged usage, but it gets the job done. And it's still better than the weird N64 Trident if you ask me. While Rumble isn't built in, a batteryless Rumble pack can be plugged into one of the slots on the top, as well as a Dreamcast memory card, known as the Visual Memory Unit, or VMU. Speaking of which, VMU features! Sega brought innovation to the humble memory card with the VMU, and with a couple of lithium watch batteries inserted, they still work just as well today as they did 15 years ago. Data can be easily copied between memory cards by plugging them into each other, so you can share or trade save games with your friends. You can manage your files while it's unplugged thanks to the screen. Certain games took advantage of the VMU in other ways too. It can function as a second screen on your controller, displaying a radar, ammo count, health condition, or just fun little animations. And some games even let you download minigames onto the VMU to play when away from the console. A couple of examples. Power Stone had 3 score attack minigames you could unlock by playing the main game, then by playing the minigames you could unlock bonus content in the main game. Sonic Adventure had the most famous example with Chow Adventure, where you can take your Chow, the game's virtual pet, out of the main game's Chow Garden and onto your VMU to take them for walks, get into fights, find items, and boost its stats for improved performance in the main game. The Chow could also be bred by plugging 2 VMUs together. Sure, the LCD screen may seem primitive at best compared to the 3DS or Vita, but there's still the potential for much enjoyment if you can look past the basic graphics, which you'd need to anyway when you're gaming on the DC, let's face it. Exclusive games and definitive versions! Just because a lot of great Dreamcast games were ported to more modern consoles, such as Sonic Adventure, Soul Calibur, Jet Set Radio, Crazy Taxi, Street Fighter 3, it doesn't mean there aren't any system exclusives left. There are some real gems that you can still only play on DC. Not a lot, granted, but as already mentioned, it doesn't take a huge investment to be able to play them. But as well as exclusives, there are also definitive editions of multi-platform games, excluding PC releases, which can have their resolutions bumped up of course. Yes, a lot of the Dreamcast games did end up ported to other systems such as the GameCube, PlayStation 2, Xbox, PlayStation Network, Xbox Live Arcade, etc. But they also received ports of PlayStation 1 and Nintendo 64 games, usually with beefed up graphics, and sometimes with exclusive content. You may have noticed I haven't given any specific examples by name. Well, that's because I'll be saving my personal picks for a future video, so stay tuned! New games! Yes, you heard that right, the Dreamcast is not dead. Well, maybe it's more of an undead corpse that's on the receiving end of several million volts every time it thinks about dying, but whatever. The final licensed game to come out was a shoot-'em-up called Karos, released in Japan in 2007, but since then independent studios have been releasing their own games. NG Dev Team and HuCast have been regularly releasing scrolling shmups for the Neo Geo AES and Dreamcast for years, and with Redux, Dark Matters, and Neo Zyx, yes that is how you pronounce it, I checked, released this year, and Ghostblade still to come, it doesn't look like they're showing any signs of stopping anytime soon. The Goat Store, that's short for Games of All Types in case you were wondering, has their own mini catalogue of independently made Dreamcast games, and notably Kickstarter has been host to a couple of RPG projects set to receive Dreamcast versions, namely Pier Solar HD and Elysian Shadows. So the Dreamcast legacy hasn't ended yet, not by a long shot. So what else lies in store for the future? Will we ever see the release of a Dreamcast 2? With Shenmue 3 as a launch title? Yeah, probably not. But I can foolishly live in hope.
We all play games. Why don't we play together? Dreamcast, up to 6 billion players.